Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting this 28th day of August 2018. Good to see everyone back after a recess. First, I would like to do the housekeeping and say a reminder to everyone that our meetings are certainly televised and web streamed. For those in attendance, if you can just make sure your cell phone is not going to make lots of loud noises, that would be appreciated. Now, just a friendly reminder to council that this meeting is certainly one that is taking place during an ongoing campaign period. And it goes without saying that those of us that are running for office are aware that we aren't here to discuss our campaigns or anything resulting from our campaigns, myself included. Also, it's important to note that we are meeting under a number of restrictions under Section 275 of the Municipal Act. So in many ways, these meetings aren't business as usual. For your information, we are going to be holding our public meetings, our 10 applications, at 4 p.m. for the rest of this term. Due to the restricted acts, there is a potential at our upcoming meetings that we won't have 2 hours of business to address outside of our planning matters. So we're just going to step it up an hour. You're aware that on your original agenda, Council, we have 2 items of business later on in our closed session. You note that you now have in front of you 2 more items to be added, and we will add those by motion in a moment, if you wish. And they were both posted on the county website yesterday for the public, and of course, you were aware of them as well yesterday by our clerk through email, and they are in hard copy on your desk. So before I get to our ceremonial activity, I would like to go to the approval of the agenda or changes to the agenda. Is there anything else to be added to the agenda? Those are the 2 items that I am aware of, the in-camera items. It has been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that the agenda be approved with the following additions. The first item is a Chief Administrative Officer's memo on human resource matter. And the second one that is distributed is the Chief Administrative Officer's report 18-31. This is general manager level staffing changes, and they will be discussed in closed session later. All those in favor of those additions? That's carried. Thank you. Again, welcome everyone on behalf of council, and we have a special person at this time to recognize. I'd like to call upon our Deputy Mayor, John Wells, to assist with this presentation, and of course I want to invite our guest of honor, Shirley Shaw, to come forward as well, please. Good to see you. Everybody's okay?
Everything's good, yes.
I'll get on with this, okay. The Office of the General Governor of Canada, 1 Sussex Drive in Ottawa, has forwarded directly to my office the Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers to be presented to Norfolk's very own Shirley Shaw. First, I would I'd like to have our Deputy Mayor do a little show and tell for everyone, if you would, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, before I read what you have asked me to read, I just want to say thank you very much for asking me to be here this afternoon. And the reason that I'm so proud to be here, Shirley and I worked together for many years at Sprucedale. Shirley worked and I was there. Let's get that straight. And Shirley, it's always a pleasure to see you again. Okay. Now, this is what I've been asked to read, and hopefully I'll read it without too many problems. The Governor's Medal for Volunteers recognizes the exceptional volunteer achievements of Canadians from across the country and celebrates a wide variety of voluntary contributions. The Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers recognizes living Canadians. Wait till I check. Yeah, she's alive. Living Canadians who have made a significant, sustained, and unpaid contribution to their community in Canada or abroad. Non-Canadians are also eligible for if their contribution brings benefit and honor to Canada. Congratulations, Shirley.
Thank you very much.
And, and in this box, we have the award. It may be filled with money. And there is the medal. I'll show it you last. There's the Medal of Honor. Gold. You won first place. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wells. And now I will present the medal to Shirley.
Take it from me. Give me that medal back. There you go,
Well,
Mr.
thank
Mayor.
you very much.
You see how quick this
I
is?
have, you know,
take it and I give it back.
I am sorry I only went over this with you 3 times in my office this afternoon, but nevertheless,
I'm from Dover. What do you expect?
on behalf of Her Excellency, the Right Honorable Julie Payette, Governor General of Canada, I present this medal to you, Shirley Shaw, in recognition of your significant efforts to volunteerism. Congratulations. Now it's yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just before I ask Shirley to say a few words, I want to first of all note that the Honorable Diane Finlay, our MP, is here, and we very much appreciate you being part of this. Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Shirley, I also want to say in closing on behalf of this Council of Norfolk County, I say congratulations to you again. Your hard work and hours of coaching and volunteering have made Norfolk County a much better place. And from all of us here, we thank you for all you do. And I would ask if you'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
No, I just want to thank all my family and friends for coming to share in this wonderful honor. It's beautiful. As you all know, my heart and soul is with the Special Olympics, but we're so lucky to be in Simcoe. We have so much support. We do so much fundraising. We have a lot of backing. It's a joy to have this, but it's a bigger joy to be with my athletes and the coaches that I have. I'm very honored, and I'm very, very humble. Thank you very much.
Again, congratulations.
Could Diane come up and get anyone with us?
Yes, excuse me. Ms. Finlay?
Alrighty. Didn't want to hear that lovely.
It's a beauty.
Yeah, you saw it coming, so you had to put yours on. Because,
Put it on
you
for
didn't-
Shirley.
you didn't
Nobody
want it
else.
shown up,
I won't
eh?
put it on
Hi,
for Shirley.
Diane. Can I get you right in here, please?
Thank you so much for coming. That was so lovely. Thank you.
Madam MP. Okay, if you would hold that up like so.
Sure.
And, yeah, Diane, get your chin under there, please. Alrighty. And Charlie.
Okay, thank you.
Good, perfect. Keep that hand up like there, like that.
Okay.
Okay. Looking this way, please, Shirley. Can't approve on Congratulations.
Start at the left.
Left, we'll start on the left.
Yep, Chair, that's you.
Okay,
Oh, left.
our left.
This is one of my great coaches.
Oh, great.
Very honored to have her on my team.
Oh, yeah, you're looking good here. That's good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's an honor.
Very, very deserving.
Oh, thank you.
So pleased that you got here.
You can take this with you. If you have no intentions of hanging around for the meeting and you wish to leave now, you're certainly welcome to stay, but we can give you a moment if you wish to get out and enjoy the beautiful weather. We'll just wait for a moment. Take care.
Yeah, I'll be at the training camp in October.
We'll be watching. No. Item number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Are there any to declare? Councillor Black, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. It's item DCS 1869, the old Malibu Club.
Yes.
I own the property butting it, so I have, I guess, an indirect pecuniary interest, and therefore will abstain from any discussion and remove myself from the scene.
1869, that's noted. Thank you. Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I apologize. I believe I have a conflict on the tax rebate report. I'll get it to you here in a second. Staff report 18-34 is, and I say this without a lot of research, but I believe I'm a mortgage holder on one of the properties. Thank you.
1834, noted. Any further conflict of interest to declare? Okay, thank you. We'll proceed then. We'll go right to our deputations. We have 2 this evening. Our first deputation will be from Christy Delahunt from the Twisted Fish, and her deputation is about concerns about partnering with the county. Christy, you can come down to the microphone, please, and while you're making your way down, I'll remind our deputations that you have 10 minutes. At 9-minute mark, if you're there, I will just let you know you have a minute left, and I'll certainly remind you, as you approach the end of your time. Christy?
Mr. Mayor, I have to admit to a little bit of nerves. I woke up this morning thinking I was a little kid doing a school speech. Mr. Wells, did you remember that? Yes. I'd like to start first just telling you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here. I'm the sole proprietor business owner of the Twisted Fish Yoga Studio in Port Dover. I am a single mom of 3. I've worked really hard to build my business in this community over the past 7 years. And having begun the business as a social enterprise, I've many times gone to extraordinary measures to keep our mandate of keeping programming accessible and affordable for our community. I'm highly qualified in my field of practice. I ensure that my studio and the teachers that I hire offer premium services at affordable rates. I'm referred to for the purpose of yoga, rehabilitative therapy by physicians, physiotherapists, chiropractors, osteopaths, massage therapists, and occupational therapists. In the past 7 years, I've employed more than 25 teachers. I've also mentored, actually recently, and acted as an advisor for another young lady who opened up a yoga studio in Simcoe, filling one of the many long, empty downtown business storefronts. In terms of economic development, I'm what Norfolk County needs, from what I hear. I've been approached by Norfolk County's Recreation Department asking if I would partner on a pilot project funded by a grant to establish affordable yoga programming in Port Dover. A partnership for 2 10-week programs was proposed, and as the discussion evolved, it became really apparent this partnership would actually be detrimental to my business. The bulk of the funding was meant to go toward outfitting programs already run by Norfolk County with fitness supplies, as well as covering kind of off administration fees for the county, as I was told. I asked what would stop the county from continuing to run the classes that I design after the partnership is over and marketing them to the client base that I create in competition with programs that I already offer. There are no firm guarantees. I've concluded that I'm basically being asked to establish municipally subsidized programming that will eventually draw clients away from my business. This poses an existential threat to my business and what I do in my livelihood. I'm aware that healthy and fair competition is good for the economy. I have no issues with competition in the private sector. I helped somebody set themselves up in competition with me. When I opened my business, I did not expect to have to compete with a municipality that I pay taxes to. I have built a market here through thousands of hours of work and investing every spare dollar that I've had into my business. It's a crushing defeat to know that Norfolk County is now targeting that market to offer low-cost programming. I already offer classes for as low as $1. How much lower can it go? I'm just getting to the point where I'm starting to see some of the benefits from all the hard work and sacrifices that I've made, and I cannot compete with a corporation that has access to resources that private sector businesses such as mine just don't have. What is Council's position on Norfolk County's programming? Competing with the private sector. Does Council actually believe this is acceptable? Does Council consider this fair competition for incoming and existing businesses? And why would any entrepreneur establish a small business that offers services to the community in Norfolk County if there's a chance that the county might eventually come along and offer duplicate services once there is a demand? Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. I'm now going to open it up for any questions to you. Councillor Wells, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for your deputation. It was very well done. You were an excellent orator.
Thank you, sir.
And I appreciate what you were saying. What are you asking us for?
Directly, I'm asking the county to step down from competing with private sector business. Straight up. No ifs, ands, or buts, no dilly-dallying about costs. Just step down from competing with private sector business, please.
So if I understand it correctly, what you're suggesting is, I understand that part, but you're also suggesting that we don't get involved with the program at all. Is that basically it?
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting I can fix this. When we already have, what I had to do when I opened a business was actually research the market. I had to see how many people were in this area, number one. Number two, who might actually show up for yoga out of that population. Then I had to see what the competition was already running. And being a community-minded person, when I came into this community to teach, I was very careful not to, as I wanted the business of yoga itself and fitness to grow, I didn't want to necessarily compete with teachers' times and prices. I offered my services at the same rate that current teachers were offering them at, very specifically not to undercut and not to devalue what they were offering. When the county chooses to step up, and whether it's yoga Now, I'd like to take yoga out of the equation just for a moment because I know a lot of people, when they look at me, they see me associated with the yoga business. This goes way beyond yoga. This isn't a private sector business. I had one person actually, and I want to quote them exactly so I don't get this wrong, but he said, "This has gone on too long. It's no different than Norfolk County opening a restaurant beside one of our local restaurants and offering reduced prices for food and supplementing the cost with our taxes." To put it into perspective, just step down. There are things that the county is very good at looking after. Roads would be one of them. Pools, arenas, things that the private sector cannot possibly put their hand in or ever afford to. We're already offering services that are premium services. People like myself are experts in our field. We're doing the best that we possibly can. If other services are offered like this, at such a reduced rate and cost, one, it undercuts my pricing. I can't possibly afford to compete with that. And most private sector businesses aren't going to compete at that level. They're not going to drop below market value of what something is worth to offer it. The county seems to be able to access grant funds, ones that I, as a private sector business, cannot access. And so they're in a position to compete with us at a level that we can't ever possibly step up to. Keep doing this, it will continue to put businesses out of business, myself being one of them. And that terrifies me in this community, where I would like to see my children grow up and maybe even come back and have jobs here.
Continue.
I think I understand basically what you were saying, or what you were asking,
Mm-hmm.
that the county does not get involved in the yoga business. Is that basically it?
Yoga, restaurants, website design, breweries. Where does it end? What kind of business is Norfolk County actually in? Are you in all of the business? Because if so, entrepreneurs need to actually know that going into things.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Christy, for your presentation. What caught my ear was just at the very end of your presentation when you said the county getting involved in, or you weren't aware at the time you started your business that the county would be choosing to get involved in yoga classes when the demand was there. Are you telling council that you can meet all of the demand for yoga in the community that you serve? Or is it becoming popular enough that people are not able to come and get classes in your facility because it's busy? I'm curious to know about the demand part. If the service is not adequately being provided by you, what's the harm, I guess, in the county providing the same service if you cannot meet the demand?
Has there been any evidence that I couldn't meet the demand?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. You made reference to once the demand was there, i.e., I interpret that to mean people need more classes. Are you meeting all of the demand that is there, is my question to you.
I would say that the 3 yoga studios that I know of right off the top of my head, again, it's not about yoga, but the businesses that offer these services are more than meeting the demands. The only thing that we might not be able to offer would be water yoga. At which point I would be happy to contract out a teacher to the county and have one of our teachers represented and do water yoga. That's about the only demand that we can't meet right now. We have hot yoga studios. We have classes for aging and elderly. I partnered with Parkinson's Canada in this past year to start actually offering classes subsidized through grants through Parkinson's Canada. We're in conversation right now with Alzheimer's Society, actually as well, offering classes for caregivers, for limited mobilities, for prenatal women, for postnatal women, for babies, for moms and babes, for children. I think we've got just about everything in the market covered, and at very affordable rates. So.
Councillor Columbus, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Christie, what is the price difference between what you offer, is it per hour or per?
We usually do by class. For example, for a first-time member coming in to try things out, we have a $40 for 40 days. It brings my classes down to $1.
And what is the county's?
The counties, I'm honestly not sure at this moment. I haven't seen their advertising for incoming classes. They were running $12 and less the last time that I checked for drop-in classes, with some subsidy available, to my knowledge. The regular classes that we have, for example, a year-long membership, which we don't have a ton of members that choose to do that, but we do have some. It brings classes down to an average of about $4.70 a class. I'm looking at a client that would know it right off the top of his head. Somewhere between $2.70 and $4.80 a class. A monthly membership, people can go in, so we try to keep things as affordable as possible, and you have the option, 4 class passes, 8 class passes, and I have always made it a studio policy that if finances are an issue for any reason, to bring it directly to us, and we will subsidize the classes. Read size subsidized classes out of pocket.
Thank you. Second question, Mr. Mayor. What is your estimated loss of income because the municipality is involved with summer classes on a per year basis?
I have not honestly run those numbers at all. I would guess that we would probably lose 10 to 20% of people who would be first-time people trying to check out a new thing like yoga. And again, that's speculation entirely. I know that when people are trying something new, I've been in the fitness industry for about 20 years, they usually try something on for size the first couple times. They're like, yeah, that's uncomfortable, I don't want to do that, and they don't come back. When you have consistent care and compassion showing up and educated, well-rounded teachers, they tend to show up more regularly. My fear would be that it would undercut my pricing so badly that first-timers, people who had never experienced yoga before or our facility, would turn to something like that, get a bad taste in their mouth, and not end up coming back to my business.
Thank you. Councillor Black?
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And the deputation, you did ask council a question, what we thought about the idea of government competing with private sector, and I'll tell you that I don't think it should happen. In a general way, government should not be competing with the private sector. I know sometimes the lines get a little bit blurry, but I'm wondering, have you spoken to staff and I guess it's community service programming. Have you spoken to a staff member about this, and what was their response?
I spoke to the staff member at length who brought this proposal to me. I found it very curious that they were, first a little backup with this, that they were, and I have the deepest respect for this one particular person who showed up, and she won't be with the organization for too much longer. I believe she's retiring. But the understanding that I had and how it was portrayed to me was that right there in the nest of Port Dover, we had the population that made it possible for Norfolk County Rec to actually apply for the grant in the first place. They needed to partner with another business in the area, such as myself, to be able to obtain that grant based on the population that I've personally helped to co-create and build in Port Dover. I found it odd that a lot of that money would come back into the Simcoe Rec Center programming and rec facilities and back into administration and not actually directly into ours.
It sounds interesting, but I know I've had discussions about this very topic in the past with staff, and I haven't had one lately, but I know in the past they do try to avoid to do any programming that duplicates what the private sector is doing. So I certainly would be interested to know what staff have to say about this.
Well, and it is duplicating, if I may say so. It's duplicating programs we already have in effect. We already have a supported chair yoga program. We already have a Parkinson's program. We already have seniors programming. So where is this need coming from? I'm not quite sure, when the private sector is already fully capable of looking after all of it at this point. That's...
Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Nice hardware, by the way. Through to the deputation, how long have you been in business?
Just about 8 years.
Pardon me?
Just about 8 years.
8 years. So I received a call either a year or two ago that actually mentioned this to me. So when did Norfolk County start offering a yoga program?
I'm not sure. They've been offering yoga for a while. They've been offering some senior programs, particularly the swim yoga program I know is quite popular. And another teacher I know has been teaching classes at the county at least for 4 years that I know of, 3 or 4 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did
was
receive a call.
Okay, I was concerned about this about a year and a half ago when a very similar topic came up.
Right.
It was probably me you were talking to at some point.
Okay.
And I finally just said, I'll leave it alone. I'll keep doing business. It was when this came up again, I went, you know what? I can only put my head under the ground for so long and pretend this isn't happening. It's going to begin to directly affect me.
Right. It will
Sooner
erode
than
your
later.
business.
And not just me, other businesses, if this is the general policy and the way things are run.
Okay. And you don't believe that obviously the government should compete with private business?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council to our deputation? Okay, Christy, thank you for your deputation, and you may be seated. And I want to
you,
just
Mayor.
add that certainly I think all of us here are well aware of the excellent programming that you do in your yoga business, and we appreciate that. It's been moved by Councillor Guys and seconded by Councillor Columbus that the deputation of Christy Delahunt regarding concerns about partnering with the county be received as information. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Any further on this? Councillor Black, please.
Well, I don't know if this requires a report from staff, but I'm certainly curious to know, because like I said before, I have spoken to staff, and I do know staff try to avoid competing with the private sector. So I don't know if it's appropriate to ask that question now or look for a staff report on this topic. So, and I guess it would be
Well,
Mr. Cridland.
I think either way, your question is in order, certainly at this time. Mr. Cridland, your thoughts, any comments from you would certainly be appreciated.
Through the chair to county council. I guess I can start with Councillor Black's question is, no, we do not try to compete with private sector on these. I'm not sure where the debate's going to go. As far as yoga, I do have the fall in-guide and the spring 218 in-guide in front of us. Our classes are in there. They're very limited classes that we do offer. In talking with Susie Ray, the program supervisor, we have not expanded our yoga classes. We look for, if there is an opportunity, there is a need in the communities. We offer some classes in the west end of the county when the opportunity is there. Mrs. Delahunt's talk here today about the programming money. We did have some money that came in. We did look as Dover because we don't offer anything there. We thought it would be a great partnership with her group to hand it there. We had no intentions of taking it over afterwards. We don't have the staff. Any expansion in any of our recreational programming stuff would have to come to council for budget amendments because we would need money to hire outside instructors, pay for the rooms, the supplies, that sort of thing.
And then Councillor Oliver.
Well, I just wonder if Mr. Cridland could expand on that. How did we go off the rails according to Ms. Delahunt and according to you? They don't seem to be jiving together.
Through the chair to Councillor Wells. In fairness, Ms. Delahunt and myself did try to get together ever since Saturday. We had a brief talk Saturday. Her schedule didn't allow. She did get back to me early this morning on my way in, and I was unable to talk. So we only had a brief talk, and we didn't get into, maybe the message that was communicated to her. I had my thoughts, she had hers, and I think we respectfully agreed to disagree on what the program was for. So I'm not sure if Ms. Delahunt and myself could have a little more communication, we could straighten this out, but I think that's why maybe you're seeing two different stories here. Just, we need to communicate this to pull it together.
Continuing on that line of thinking, would you suggest that the best thing we could do at the present time is to allow you and Ms. Delahunt to get together and you would come back with some information for us as a council to debate?
Through the chair, Councillor Wells, I'm agreeable. I'm thinking Susie Ray, our programming programmer to be involved in that, and we could make it any time that Ms. Delahunt wanted to, if she is interested. I think it would help break down some of the miscommunication here.
Well, if that's the case, and if there is no further debate, I would like to move that recommendation that Mr. Cridlin and Ms. Delahunt get together to discuss this and bring us back some information on this topic.
I have two other speakers, but until I get to them, can I have a seconder for that motion? Columbus has seconded. I'll let you write that up. I am going to recognize Councillor Oliver and then Councillor Height, and then we'll discuss the motion.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. As I listened to the delegation, it struck me that the reason why the county had reached out to her business as a possible partner opportunity was that we had the opportunity to bring in some special provincial funding of some sort. And if that's correct, and Mr. Cridlin is nodding that it is, my question to Mr. Cridlin, Mr. Mayor, is
Yes.
if there's no particular interest in Port Dover's yoga fraternity or community in having us offer additional classes, could we take those funds and apply them in another community where perhaps we're already providing some yoga classes?
Through the chair to council.
To expand the program, in other words.
Through the chair to council office, that's exactly what staff have did. We have moved on, and there have been other individuals or groups that are more than interested in taking advantage of this opportunity.
Thank you for that answer. So my question, I guess, Mr. Mayor, going back to my colleague's proposed motion, why would we bother if Ms. Delahunt has no interest in meeting with us or in looking to expand a program in partnership, and we've got other communities that are interested in, take the money and go to the other community that's interested rather than seeing it spent in Port Dover, I guess. That's my observation at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to Mr. Cridlin. Do you know historically how many people are enrolled in the yoga program that you offer?
Through the chair to Councillor Height, I don't have numbers with me tonight. A lot of our yoga programs are tied to our fitness membership, so somebody will buy a membership card which allows them to do dry land training, the pool as well, and it's included in that. But I could pull together some numbers. We have our at the rec center, the Norfolk County Yoga, and there also is Friday Yoga, which the Simcoe Lions cover the complete cost for that, so I'd have to separate the Fridays from the Tuesday, but I could get some numbers for council. That's not a problem.
Okay, so it would be a safe assumption at this point you wouldn't know the cost of the program or the revenue either?
Through the chair to Councillor Height, no. On page 38 of our summer guide, it is, if you're going to drop in or page you go, it's $12 a session, and from there it goes down with the pass card, 10 visits is 81, 20 visits is 60 or 160, and 50 is 380. So to put that in perspective, I think doing some quick math, it's about $7 or $8 per class, unless you go the $12 stop in as you go.
Right, and then you have the cost of the staff who run the program. I guess where I'm going with this, Mr. Cridlin, Norfolk County's too small to compete with fledgling businesses trying to get going, and by separating it, you only have such a size of a pool, and by separating that out, I'm wondering if we wouldn't be better off just giving out vouchers for the people that want to participate to go to the private businesses and help them grow as well. I don't know why we would offer something that's already offered. This isn't downtown Toronto, right? So without costs and figures, it's really hard to decide over which way to go, but that's the way I'd be leaning. Thank you.
I'll let you speak, and then I'm going to go to the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Luke. I just wondered if we could take a yoga class, our council. We could. Anyways, I have a question for Mr. Cridlin. And maybe, I do know of a lot of other private areas that provide this service, but I don't know how many. And I'm just wondering if there's any way we could find that out. Maybe Mr. Cridlin could answer that.
Through the chair to Councillor Breton, I mean, yes, staff could do a local search. Maybe we could rely, if we get to the meeting with Ms. Delahunt, that, she knows the industry, we can find out who exactly is offering it, what levels they're offering. I mean, can say that the majority of the small yoga we do offer is geared to the seniors, low impact, beginner type stuff. We don't get involved in the hot, extreme, whatever it is out there. But I'm sure we can come up with a number of how many suppliers of yoga there are in Norfolk County, countywide.
That'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wells and Columbus, you okay to proceed with the motion? Thank you. Moved by Wells, seconded by Columbus, that the staff be directed to have further discussion with Ms. Delahunt and bring information back to this council. Discussion? Councillor Height?
Mayor Luke, I won't be supporting this motion. Didn't we just hear there's another yoga studio in Simcoe? So are they going to come next week, and we're going to ask them to sit down too? Personally, I think a staff report's more appropriate. We could find out more of the details and come up with a solution as opposed to a get-together.
Any further discussion? I hear none. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you. I went to the first deputation. Kim Earls is here from SCORE for her presentation. As Kim understood that Mayor Molnar was going to be here. He's not here. You're ready to proceed? Okay, thank you for waiting. I did jump over you. I wasn't sure if he was coming. If you want to come, we will do your presentation from SCORE Economic Development at this time, and then I will move on to Andrew Moore's deputation afterwards. Thank you very much, Kim, for your patience.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. Is there a slide or no? If not, that's fine. I did. I can go forward in the interest of time anyway. I'm sure you have all the information in front of you. So I'm here today just to give an update on the SCORE partnership. And so the first slide is about what brought the 5 counties together. And we were brought together back in 2010 as a means to share resources. We have common makeup throughout our 5 county communities, and at that time we were facing a decline in the tobacco industry, and the intent of the mayors of the 5 counties and council at the time was to diversify and make the most of our resources in a shared economy across the 5 county region. So a little bit just about what we have been up to over the last year. Let me just, okay, so over 2017 and early 2018, we've been focusing on business supports. So we've had a number of opportunities to do that. We've partnered with OMAFRA and had a downtown revitalization meetings, which is their training for those in economic development or BIAs or chambers of commerce. We also had several webinars, and one of the best practice ideas that came from that was the Win This Space, which was actually developed in Huron, and now I'm thrilled to see is adopted by Norfolk County. We also had 2 sessions for cultural ways to revitalize your downtown, and those were a group that's called Your Town Rising, and those events were hosted in Ingersoll and Paris. And again, this year we maintain a large funding database. It includes a lot of resources, not just financial, but those related to HR or other business and community support services. So we sent out last year 257 of those. And if you're not receiving those, I encourage you to get in touch with me and we can put you on the list and make sure you're receiving those. Last year in 2017, we had 3 missions to China that were paid for by third parties. So that was money that was leveraged through the 5 county partnership, but was not a cost to the partnership. We were able to go to China, and our focus was on building a business-to-business bridge and connections through there. And our main focus for those bridge building meetings were for agricultural, biotechnology, and research and development. With the 5 county region, we have historically a lot of tradition in agriculture, agricultural innovation, and we have many world-class research centers here within our post-secondary institutions. And we continue to focus on agriculture and food. We've sort of transitioned our food hub, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard of. The platform has now moved over to a fresh spoke platform, which is a private enterprise, and many of the original members of the food hub are now invested in and continue on under that platform. We've received some international recognition through groups such as the FLEDGE, which stands for Food Locally Embedded, Globally Engaged. And so we've got some international recognition for our area for that. As well, we were a part of a agri-innovation event in Chicago this past year, where the Food Hub platform did receive some recognition there as well. We continue to partner with Food and Beverage Ontario, which allows the 5 counties access to detailed industry studies that perhaps as an individual county we may not be able to access, or it might not be in the budget, but as the 5-county partnership, certainly that's something that we can access, as well as Ontario Agri-Food Technologies, and they do early stage commercialization for agriculture and food businesses. And we continue to partner with Ontario Federation of Agriculture. This last year, and I'm sure you've all heard, there's been a lot of highlight on our transportation systems, and those are sort of multi-pronged. There's the short line rail, which services specifically in our 5-county area, manufacturing and agricultural businesses. So we've been working with ways to keep those operations ongoing so that there's the opportunity for local EDOs and staff people to use that as a means for investment, attraction, and expansion. There's certainly been some conversation around the proposed high-speed rail, which will cut through sort of the 401, 402 corridor. It doesn't affect Norfolk County as much, but that's been something that certainly our board has worked with Ministry of Transportation in advocating for a provincial-wide and specifically a Western full transportation plan to ensure that if that does go through, or regardless, that we're connected both through north and south routes, through rail, passenger, and products, and just ensure that we have full connectivity down here in our region. We looked at some multimodal sites. Again, those tended to be more focused along that sort of 401, 402 corridor. So one, I believe, was identified in Middlesex County and one in Oxford. And we've been working with all the local community transportation network coordinators. So late last fall, many of our communities were awarded funding through the pilot project transportation network, and we just wanted to ensure that those fundings are honored by the current government. And we've brought together the county transportation coordinators to sort of look at where we are as far as the map goes, to make sure that there is as much connectivity and that we can leverage as much of those resources as possible, so that if someone wanted to that lives in Simcoe go to St. Thomas for educational purposes, that there was some streamlined connectivity through that network. And so we're looking at shared RFP, shared systems, those types of things. And again, as I had mentioned, we continue to work with the Ontario Community Transportation Network and MTO. Human capital. Sorry, I'm very cognizant of your time. Human capital. So we've been working with the intergovernmental group on workforce planning, and we've had some opportunities to partner with our workforce planning board, which here for Norfolk County is Grand Erie and is led by the executive director, Jill Halleck. And the LEPKI, which is more in the western part of the region, and that is Elgin, Middlesex, and Oxford. And we've done some studies on precarious employment, succession planning, and educational partnerships. And those have been done with a number of partners, so some through our workforce planning boards, some with our post-secondary institution and Rural Ontario Institute, as well as the province. And the purpose of those studies is to look at ways that we can best attract youth and retain youth in this region. And the precarious employment and the succession planning especially have a great bearing on our youth attraction and youth retention in this area, and the succession planning on all sort of small businesses, but also particularly on our agricultural businesses. And finally, many of you may have just been at AMO and Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And at those conferences, we have the opportunity to go and speak to a number of provincial ministers. And this year, we attended and were able to meet with Minister from Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Minister of Transportation, Minister of Training Colleges, University, Minister of Energy, Minister of Infrastructure, and I see that I have the MTCU on there twice, so I apologize. But that gives us an opportunity to give that rural voice, and we're able to really put forward our common goals and come up with some solutions. So if you are attending the AMO conference and have not joined our SCORE Board of Directors group, I encourage you to reach out to them. I know they're always happy to have other council members join them. And that's it. In the years that we've been together, I think that we've accomplished a great deal. We certainly insulated, I would say, this 5-county region against some of the potential declines that may have been faced or may have been felt stronger that brought the 5-county region together. And yeah, I just want to thank you very much for your continued support.
Thank you very much, Kim, for being here, and I know that you are taking updates to all 5 of the members, county members, and I certainly want to, on behalf of this council, thank you for all the work that you do for the SCORE organization. It's very much appreciated. You work very hard in keeping us informed. Are there any questions for Kim Rose? Councillor Clemens and then Oliver, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kim, the 3 trips to China, have they bared any fruit with respect to trade or job creation or industries moving here? Can you relate to us on that subject?
Sure. So that's definitely a slow-moving process. Typically, any business or investment done through China or other Asian countries is developed over years and years. And that's really why we went as the 5-county region, to sort of make those business-to-business connections. So we've received some interest, but again, it's one of those long-term visionary things, so we've not received any direct investment within this last 12-month time frame.
Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Kim, for your presentation. Mr. Mayor, I don't so much want to ask a question, but I'd like to just make a brief comment.
You certainly may.
Thank you very much. As most of my colleagues know, I've had the privilege of sitting on the SCORE board since essentially the beginning of 2007, when I was first elected to county council, and I'm quite impressed and quite proud of the way the organization has evolved over that 11 and a half years now. And it's in no small part due to the efforts of Kim Earls and to the fact, I think, a couple of years ago that SCORE reorganized itself, Mr. Mayor, as you well know, and became leaner and meaner, I guess, from an operational perspective. And I, of course, will no longer be on the board. The new council will appoint a new representative from council, and I would really encourage my colleagues that are going to be around the table as part of the new council to consider allowing yourselves to sit on the SCORE board. It is good, it is valuable, it is cost-effective, and it's a really important way for us to work together with our surrounding 4 county neighbors. So I feel it's been a real success, and I'm proud to have been part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Again, thank you, Kim, for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more deputation, and I would ask Andrew Moore to come forward to the microphone. Andrew is here to talk to us about a request for backyard chickens trial in the former town of Simcoe here. Andrew, welcome, and as you know, you have 10 minutes.
Yep, thank you. Hi, members of council, and hi, Mr. Mayor. I'm here today in hopes that you allow a trial period for backyard chickens in Simcoe. Last year, I asked for this, and you denied it, but allowed a trial for the hamlets in Norfolk County. Well, it's been a year, and there were no issues in the hamlets, so I'm hoping you allow a trial to begin for Simcoe. The last time I missed the council meeting, but was told the issues that you thought might be a problem in town were smell, noise, and predators. As for smell, a handful of backyard chickens would not stink. I know 1,000 of chickens in a barn would smell, but a few hens don't. Any animal in a large quantity and not taken care of properly will stink. As for noise, a rooster may be loud, however, a handful of hens make little to no noise. There are so many things that make more noise than hens, like dogs, vehicles, people, and wild birds. As for predators, backyard chickens do not bring in any predators. Here in Simcoe, we have the duck park, and that is home to hundreds of ducks and geese. We have had no coyotes, skunks, or rats being brought in by those hundreds of birds, so I'm confident a few hens in town would not be any different. A few benefits of having chickens are having fresh, organic eggs, the educational value, free fertilizer, weed and pest control, cutting down on food waste, and it's a fun hobby. I know that backyard chickens were successful in the hamlets and that many large cities allow them, like Guelph, Kitchener, Niagara Falls, and even Toronto. So today, I hope that you at least give the town of Simcoe a trial. Some kids like myself are interested in other things besides sports. Please allow me the opportunity to begin my life goal of being self-reliant, sorry. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Are there questions from council members? Councillor Wells?
Thank you very much for your deputation. You did very well, by the way.
Thank you.
Why specifically are you advocating for chickens?
It's always been a dream of mine to kind of have a farm, and so as I grow older, I learned that a few chickens are great to have, and I don't know, I find that I don't see any issues with having them as they don't have any negative, so yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sonnenberg?
Well, I've been in favor of chickens in town ever since the subject came up, but to no avail, obviously. My question to you is, how many chickens do you think you would like to care for to make it viable for you, make it worth your while, and yet not be onerous to the neighbors? What's your number?
I think 6 is reasonable.
6?
6 hens, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Hearing none, Andrew, you may be seated, and thank you for your deputation. It's been moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Oliver that the deputation of Andrew Moore regarding the request for backyard chickens trial be received as information. Those in favor? That's carried. Anything further on this deputation? Councillor Columbus, please.
Mayor, the young gentleman mentioned that there are no issues in the hamlets, and I just wonder who has been monitoring the number of backyard chicken operations that we already have in the hamlet in the last year since we approved that bylaw.
Well, I would get
we
Mr.
have
Enslin to
Mr.
respond.
Cribbs the expert?
I would get Mr. Enslin to respond